Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Yay! It has been how many days? It has been about a week that I've never recorded anything, but I have an update. I actually had another interview with the company, and I actually um, performed very well, I guess, because I got another email the next day that they want to move to the next stage, the third stage, third third step for hiring me. So the next week I will have an interview with that company for uh, for two programming challenges that they will ask me. That's why I'm getting prepared for the programming questions. In the meantime, I can explain what was the system design question that they asked me and how did I answer that question. I'll try to make it quick and as as the most understandable as possible. Hopefully, I can do that. What else? I have this week one interview, next week another interview. They ask me when do I want to schedule the next interview. Since I need a bit more time to get prepared for for the programming questions, I wanted to postpone it one more week. I wanted to actually schedule it for not this week but the next week. Actually, 2 weeks later, uh, basically. So before I solve one another programming question, I can explain maybe the system design question that they ask. I actually draw it. This one, I'll use just this photo to make it easier to understand. Uh, but as I showed in my last video, this one, yeah, this is an incognito. Here I can use, for example, if I say YouTube, no, maybe not YouTube, just directly type here system design bit.ly bit.ly. You can probably find a lot of useful videos. These guys probably explain a lot better than me, but since they asked me the question and I had a chance to explain from my perspective, I wanted to show you guys what did I do during the interview. So the first thing that they asked me was the way that they asked me the question was, assume that you haven't. Let me open the screen. What I'm thinking. Assume that you are working with a business student from, for example, C Boulder. The interview would use the example of C Boulder since I studied at Colorado School of Mines. A business student comes to you with an idea of TinyURL website. What does TinyURL website do is basically you put the long link, for example, CNN's news link, which is like a lot of characters. It's the website that I need to build needs to shorten it for example, only 7 characters after the slash, or like I need to just generate a slug that's about 7 characters. The reason why that I need to do is, for example, you are gonna send your friend a link, and the user, your friend, need to type that, and that will be very hard to type a lot of letters. There are a lot of websites do that already, but I assume that it's not built in the past, and I need to build everything from scratch. There were a couple of things that I needed to ask the interviewer based on the videos that I watched and based on my studies. The first question that I asked was, okay, I know that I need to generate a website with that shortens the URLs to 7 characters after, for example, bit.ly slash and then 7 characters. But when the user generates that link and sends it to his friends or her friends, assume that one guy clicked that link. Are we going to get the user to our web page and show that, hey, we are redirecting your request to the website that the user wants to go, or are we directly gonna send the user to the website? This was the first question that I asked, and the interviewer told me that no need for that. The next question that the user asked me, that I asked the user interview was, how many requests our website is going to get in the first couple of days, and like after 1 month, 2 months later, should I like create a solution with high scaled, too much traffic, or like since we are just building that website, can I assume that in the first couple of days there's not going to be too much users in the website? This was the second question that I asked, and um, the interviewer told me that the traffic will be low in the first couple of days, weeks, whatever, and it's gonna get higher by the time. But I need to know when should I scale it. And another question was, um, should I authenticate the user? For example, when they are generating the link, should I make sure that I authenticate the user and the user puts the ID, like their email address or whatever, and then we see the links that they've generated in the past. Is it going to be any user authentication? And the last question was, for example, one user clicks that link. By the way, the answer for that was yes, we need a user authentication, but this is not the priority. Um, when the user generates the link, like, should I save the key? And as like for example, I was thinking about creating a hash map, but one user comes with the one link, long link, and another user comes with the same link. Should I use the same generated ID, or does it need to be unique? Can I create another link for that user? Uh, this was affecting my design. That's why I wanted to ask, and the interviewer told me that okay, you can generate a new link for user or not. That's up to you. All right. This was the question, and this is the drawing that I have here that I can use for explanation. But I just got the screenshot while I was explaining to the interviewer. But maybe I can do something better here. I can put here draw.io and open another page here to explain the things. So here is the okay. Let's put it here. Nope, not this one. Come on. All right, and let's put it here. It's not really necessary, but before I explain the high scale solution, I wanted to show you guys what was my first solution for the problem. So here I created a website, a front end, and there is a REST server. Um, when the user wants to generate the link, like since there's not going to be too many users that is using this platform, we can use a like single computer for to use as a server. And for example, for each tiny URL that we are generating, we can create long URL, and we can create that even in the file system. What I told the interviewer, like for example, when the user wants to generate the value, for example, when the user comes with the link, with the short link from our file system, we can find the matching short name, and when we open the file, we can get the long URL link and redirect the user to the website that the user wants to go. But if we have too many users, and if we have a high scale, for example, let's say 80% threshold of our computer is like getting filled, and we are getting too much traffic and we are not able to respond fast enough, and then we need to use a database and application servers to make this process faster, a lot faster. But for the first part, we can use the REST and even a single computer, which should be fine. But when we think about how the server is gonna work, there were two different things that I put here, like to explain the things easier. I thought there's gonna be URL in our website, since it's a RESTful service. There's gonna be URL where we are generating the URL, and when the user comes with the select, that the short URL that the user comes, where we respond to long URL. So this was this title that I used for where we are doing that in our server. The method for generating a new link needs to be short link, needs to be post. Since we are creating something, it needs to be definitely post. And the request body for our, when the user, for example, in our web servers, when the user comes with the long URL, and whenever the user clicks like generate or whatever button, in our request body we need to send our long URL, and it's actually JSON format, but yeah, I forgot the double. It needs to be quotation sign, like double one, not the single one, with the JSON format. And the response body needs to be short URL, and the response status code needs to be 200 OK for our when we are generating the website. But when the user wants to get that needs to be redirected to another website, the method is going to be different. Definitely it's going to be get, because you're not creating anything, and we need to send our short URL in request body to get which short URL the user wants to use to get the long one. And we are gonna put our long URL to our responses location header, because as you know, like the browser, the first thing the browser checks when the user, I mean, maybe it's gonna be better if I also say the last part. Response status code needs to be also 301 redirects. It's actually 301 is permanent redirect and 302 is a temporary redirect, but I wanted to use the permanent redirect because redirect, maybe my pronunciation is not that good. Permanent redirect because if we use the temporary redirect, I know that there is an optimization of Google that makes it faster to catch that, even if it's temporary. If you redirect, like very often Google understands in its search engine. But if you don't use the permanent redirect, your index is actually getting index priority in Google's search algorithm getting lower. So we want to use the permanent redirect, and we use whenever the browser sees the 301 status code, the next thing that the browser checks is the location header, and because the browser knows that browser needs to redirect that request and looks at the location header, and then whatever the website or whatever is written there, just browser redirects the user to there. So these are the things that we want to use. But if we want to look at the architecture of that, we have a web browser, and the number of the applications needs to be increased since we are having a read-heavy system, and we are getting like one user generates a link. It may take like 2-3 seconds, 5 seconds, because it's not a bad user experience. Like you're trying to generate something, you can wait for 2-3 seconds. It's not something abnormal. But when you want to go to a website and when you click that link, you want to go there fast, right? So it's important to understand that it's a read-heavy system, and whenever one user generates a website link, for example, think of it like you're a very famous person and you don't use Twitter's own URL shortening algorithm. You want to use use a website, assume, and then one famous guy puts there a short link, tiny URL link, and like 1 million users wants to click that link, or maybe 200,000. So it's gonna be too many requests. So you need to handle. But when 2 million people cannot generate at the same time like the same thing, it's when you think about the probability, the first one is probably higher probability. So I said it's a read-heavy system, and there needs to be more than one applications that needs to handle all that stuff going on here. There needs to be 3 arrows here, but since I had time limitation, I wanted to just show it very quick, and I put here 3 application servers, and at that point I needed to put here a load balancer. The reason why that I put here a load balancer to synchronize, not between the applications, I'll say, the synchronize between web's front end part, and the application side. So the front end part just knows where to send it, where to send that request. It's just the load balancer. But load balancer is the one that handles between these application servers, whichever one is less busy, whichever one is the priority, whatever. There are three application servers. Plus, since we have higher scale system, we have a database in the back. But it's actually a cluster database, and there needs to be for example, when I said put here one database, I could actually put here three database. This like one is the master, two others are the slave, and I told the interviewer that for the two other databases I will use the slaves for read, and for master we can use read and write. But since when we are creating something in our master, for example, master is used for writing, as I said, but before master and slaves response back to the application, it is written. It needs to update the values in and slaves as well, because if another user wants to read the data from the slave, when after we generate it, if we do not write it there could be some problem. That's why it's important that to understand it's a cluster database, and if you want to put here a load balancer to kind of handle that request, we can put it as well, or maybe we need to put it. I don't know. What did I say during the interview? Plus, I put here a cache. I didn't have time to write it. I put here cache because read through cache. It's actually read through cache, I guess. Because when the user wants to, it's a cache, and Redis, we can use Redis, for example, for that purposes. We want to make sure that everything goes fast, right? So let's say one user generates a link, and as I said, 200,000 people are trying to reach out to that website. So we know that this website is getting called very often, so we want to put it in our cache to make this process faster. So there was a cache here. And what else? So as you see, first it looks at the cache if there is something in the cache, if the link that we are looking is in the cache. If not, goes back to app, goes to the database, and then writes the link here, generates the looks the long URL here, and then responds back to the application side. And before everything goes back to the user, it writes to our cache. It's actually called, I guess, not write. It's not actually write through, write back cache, write back type of cache, because we are writing back when we are going back to the web service. So it writes the value to our cache, and then it comes back to our web service. So this is how my system basically works, and I didn't actually have too much time to explain all the details, and I think you will not have time as well. But for example, this cache type could be LRU, for example, and here very important to understand is this system needs to be it needs to be highly available, and on the other hand, high consistent. Let me look at my notes if there is something that I would probably use or add. Oh, okay. So I missed the very important part, actually. I didn't have a chance to explain it yet. So how do I generate the links? For the links, let's say it's 7 characters, what would I use? I wouldn't use just 10 numbers, for example, because the probability would be like 10 to the 7. So I would need to use letters, uppercase letters, lowercase letters, and the numbers. There are actually 62 of them, and for 7 characters, it makes around 62 up to the 7, which is around 3.5 trillion, I guess, as far as I remember. So it's and it's a lot. It's enough for a system like that, and it should be enough to kind of generate for a very long time, I guess. I don't know. What else? And how do I generate this characters, random letters? It's not very important that one user generates a link and then another user tries to estimate it and understand how our system kind of encrypts that, all that kind of stuff. It's not really like an authentication server that we are trying to create very secure system. So I decided to use a counter to create to use our database, and for that counter, actually, what I used was I was creating a random random number or random value, 7 characters value. But to do that, I actually used Zookeeper, and this was in one of my implementation actually. So what the user Zookeeper does is, whenever you have the Zookeeper is actually generating some blocks in our database, and these blocks are being, for example, from 1 megabyte to 5 gigabyte, for example, is actually given to application var 1. 5 gigabytes to 10 gigabytes is given to application 2. Yeah, whatever. From 10 gigabyte to 15 gigabyte is giving to application 3, and you have still too much space. But whenever the application needs some space, Zookeeper generates it, and it's actually called distributed service management or whatever. Let me look at them. A distributed system manager. So this counter, since we are using a counter, is not actually random. So like if the 2 users, so let's say 6 people tries to generate a website and they send long URL, probably 1, 2, 3, we have 3 of them. So the next one, the 4th link that the user is trying to generate could be from the same application, so the range could go to just the next one. So to solve this problem, I can add extra 10 or 10 to 15 bits to the value that we find, and to make it more randomized, so that the user wouldn't need to worry about that. I mean, it would be harder to predict. Plus, let's say if our one of application server doesn't run, and there's a problem with our one of application server, the information that we lose is not actually a big problem, since we have very huge number of possibilities to generate these letters. We can start another application and give another range, and the application could still handle that. So basically, Zookeeper solves a lot of problem that the interviewers are usually asked based on the videos also that I watch. What else? Let me check one notes. And for example, for database, I said I would use no SQL, no SQL. I said I used sequential database, but some of the solutions I remember they use NoSQL. But since I feel more comfortable with SQL, I said I was ready to answer the question that the interviewer can ask. That's why I decided to use SQL basically. I didn't remember this relational database, not non-relational database. I told the user that I would use a relational database. What else? So I think this is basically this was basically my response to the question. And some parts that I had a chance to explain today, but not during the interview, because after I explained a lot of details about my implementation, the interviewer wanted to move forward to ask me some other questions. There were some behavior questions, also some type of programming related questions, but this was with engineer manager. So the next step is going to be with two software engineers. They're going to ask me two programming challenges that I need to leave code. So hopefully it goes well. I'm getting prepared for this. I was planning to solve one of the questions here. Maybe I can create another, not this one. Leave. Maybe I can create another link. Another video to solve this question, because this video was already very long. But how many minutes is that? Where can I see that? It's about 25 minutes. Oh my god. It was a long video, which I'm not used to doing that. So, yeah. I'm in the next step. Hopefully there are not many mistakes that I did while I explain this. Some people could definitely know it better than me. Maybe I didn't answer very well, but they wanted to move forward to the next step. Maybe there was a better explanation that I needed to do, but still, I'm in the next step. I'm learning, and this is not something that I'm very used to from school. So I'm getting ready every day. Hopefully, see you guys if in another video if you want to watch my solution for anagram question. But if not, it's okay. Just enjoy your time, and thanks for watching. And thanks for myself for explaining it. Have a good day.